We moved into our new house just a few weeks ago. The place was huge, creaky, and felt a bit too quiet, but it was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance for things to be better. My mother, who'd always dreamed of a perfect home, was happier than I'd seen her in months. She was the one who'd wanted this, and I was the one who tried to keep a sense of normalcy. It was one of those houses that could have been charming if it hadn't been so old. The walls groaned in the wind. The wood floors creaked with every step. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of something ancient. Every room seemed slightly off, like it had secrets it wasn't willing to share yet. When we first moved in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I tried to ignore it. I kept telling myself it was just the house settling. But when I walked through the halls sometimes, it felt like the walls were closing in. Mom didn't seem to notice it, though. She was caught up in the excitement of organizing everything, as if the house were the start of a new chapter in her life. I wanted to be happy for her, but something in the back of my mind kept me on edge. One afternoon, after we'd unpacked most of the boxes, my mom handed me a crumpled old sheet of paper. It looked like it had been through hell, creases everywhere, corners torn, as if it had been folded and unfolded hundreds of times. She didn't look at me when she gave it to me, just passed it silently and shuffled away. "What's this?" I asked, holding up the paper. She didn't answer, and I watched her disappear into the living room, her back turned. I stood there confused and unfolded the paper. The moment I read the first line, my heart skipped a beat. The writing was jagged, barely legible in some places, and looked almost frantic. It was a list, a set of rules. I skimmed through it quickly, thinking it was just some sort of prank or joke. But the more I read, the more unsettled I felt. Welcome to your new house. However this was delivered to you, it is vital that you follow each and every rule very carefully as long as you live here. Only you, whoever received this letter, are bound to the rules and their consequences. Please remember that any writing in strange penmanship is meant to deceive you. Usually these will be crossed out, but if they are not, please cross them out yourself. The rules are as follows. Rule number 1. If anything goes wrong in the events of rule number 2, or you don't follow rule number 3, you must go outside. Head to the kitchen and pour sea salt in a circle around you before covering your ears. Once the clock reads 5 a.m., you can clear away the salt and return to what you were doing prior. I stared at the paper, my hands shaking. Sea salt? I had no idea what to make of it. This wasn't a joke, at least not a normal one. But my mind kept racing. Maybe it was some old superstition or a game the previous owners had left behind. I read on, but the next rule made my stomach drop. Rule number 2, if at night you hear a window creak open and you wake up, you must not show you're awake. Count to 30 in your head and try your best to go back to sleep. If something goes wrong, follow rule number 1. Listen to the voices. I would never lead you astray, right? Voices? What kind of voices? I felt a chill run down my spine, but I wasn't going to let this weird letter mess with my mind. I shook my head, trying to dismiss it. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. I folded the paper up and walked into the living room where my mom was sitting. She was staring at the TV, unblinking, her eyes glassy. I stood in front of her and waved the paper in front of her face. "Mom, what is this?" I asked, demanding an explanation. "You gave this to me a few minutes ago." She blinked slowly and then looked at me confused. "I don't know what you mean, hon. What is it?" I was stunned. She had no idea what I was talking about. "Mom, you literally handed it to me, just now." She seemed more confused than ever, like she wasn't even aware of the conversation we were having. After a long pause, she said, "I've been sitting here watching TV for the last half hour. Maybe you're just tired." I couldn't believe it. There was no way she didn't remember handing me that letter. But instead of pushing it further, I let it go. Then I heard it. Soft crying. I turned around, my heart racing. It came from upstairs. I knew that sound. It was Sarah, my older sister. I ran up the stairs following the sound, but when I turned the corner to her room, I froze. There, standing in the hallway, was my sister. Her back was to me, and her hands were pressed against her face like she was crying. "Sarah," I called, stepping toward her. "What's going on?" She turned around. Her face was pale, but it was the smile that unnerved me. She wasn't crying at all. Instead, she was smiling this eerie, unnatural smile. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and there was something off about the whole expression. Something wrong. "Sarah, what's happening?" "What's going on?" I asked again. But my voice shook this time. She didn't respond. She just giggled, quietly at first, then louder, and almost maniacal. The sound sent a shiver through my spine. And then before I could say anything else, she sprinted down the stairs, still laughing, her footsteps echoing down the hall. I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. That wasn't my sister. It couldn't have been. I ran after her, but when I reached the stairs, she was gone. I didn't know what to do. My head was spinning. I needed answers, so I went to her room, thinking I might find some clue. And that's when I saw it. A note was pinned to her door. A note I hadn't seen before. I stepped closer, my hands trembling as I read it. "Going out to a party with friends. Be back at 10 p.m. Call if something's wrong. Sarah." This was impossible. My sister had been upstairs, right in front of me, and now she was supposedly out at a party? I was starting to lose my mind. I had to get to the bottom of this. I grabbed the list again, desperate to understand. I felt sick, but the more I read, the more I began to believe what was happening. Rule #3, do not under any circumstances go outside at night. If you find yourself outside when night falls, stay out until daybreak. If you don't follow this rule for any reason, follow rule #1. I was starting to get dizzy. This wasn't a prank, this was real, and something was happening. I had to get out of here, but I wasn't sure what would happen if I left. But then I read the final rule, the one that made my heart drop into my stomach. Rule #4, if you see a family member facing away from you in a hallway and crying, stay away. It's not your family member. If you fail to do this, for 3 nights afterward, you will be hunted down. During this period, none of the protective rules will apply. Hunted down. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. This was happening. This was real. I looked at the clock. 9:31 p.m. Half an hour. I didn't care anymore. I couldn't stay here. I needed to get out, even if I didn't understand what was going on. I grabbed the keys to my mom's car, trembling as I ran to the front door. I needed to get away. I didn't care where, I just had to leave. I got in the car, my heart pounding in my chest, and I drove. Fast. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay in that house. I pulled into a parking lot at the airport, my head spinning. I glanced at the clock in the car, 9:59, and then everything went to hell. The glass shattered. A dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was massive, tall, impossibly tall, with smooth black skin that reflected the light from the overhead lamps. The creature had no eyes, just dark voids where eyes should have been, and its long, segmented limbs seemed to stretch and shift unnaturally with each step it took. Its movements were too quick, too fluid, like it wasn't bound by the same rules that govern normal creatures. I couldn't breathe. The air around me seemed to thicken, as if the entire room was closing in. I took a step back, heart pounding in my chest, my legs shaking so badly I nearly collapsed. This was real. The thing from the list, the creature, it was right in front of me, and it was coming for me. I stumbled backward, my mind racing for any possible escape. It's not real. It can't be real. But the cold, slick feeling of terror in the pit of my stomach told me otherwise. The creature hissed, low, guttural. Its mouth was wide, filled with too many sharp, jagged teeth that gleamed in the light. It tilted its head, and I swore I could feel its gaze even though it had no eyes. My skin prickled, a chill running down my spine as it stepped closer, its claws scraping against the floor like nails on a chalkboard. It was almost too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, heavy and ragged, and the frantic thud of my heartbeat in my ears. I had to move. I had to get away. I fumbled for my phone, but it was useless. The creature was closing in, and I needed something. I wasn't going to die here. I grabbed a metal signpost from the ground, something that had fallen loose in the chaos, and swung it at the creature with all the strength I could muster. The creature didn't flinch. It didn't even seem to notice at first. The metal post slammed into its chest, but it was like hitting a brick wall. The creature merely paused, its head cocking slightly, as if confused by my resistance. Then, with a swift, almost mocking motion, it reached out with one of its long limbs, knocking the sign out of my hands as though it were nothing. I was out of options. I didn't know what to do. I turned and ran, adrenaline flooding my veins. I pushed my way through the crowded airport, but no one seemed to see me. They didn't even acknowledge the creature stalking me. People walked right through it, oblivious. It was like I was the only one trapped in this nightmare. I heard the creature's roar behind me, its claws clicking on the smooth floor as it pursued me. The sound was deafening, vibrating through the air, but no one else seemed to react. I reached an alcove, a small storage room, and slammed the door behind me, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was small, and I could hear the creature pacing just outside, its heavy breath scraping like sandpaper against the walls. I was trapped, but I didn't have time to think about that. I needed to find a way to fight back. I grabbed anything I could find, a box of tissues, some cleaning supplies, a bottle of perfume. I threw the perfume at the creature when I saw it loom closer, its shape moving through the doorframe. The bottle exploded, sending a cloud of scent into the air, and for a brief moment, the creature hissed, pulling back in disgust. I wasn't sure what kind of effect the perfume had, but I didn't care. I used the momentary distraction to scramble past the creature, my feet pounding against the floor as I ran through the hallway. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay there. I burst through the nearest exit door and into the parking lot, gasping for air as I dove into my mother's car. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the keys, trying to start the engine. I could hear the creature's roar behind me, its claws scraping against the concrete, but I wasn't sure how much time I had left. The car finally sputtered to life, and I slammed the gear shift into drive, peeling out of the lot with my heart still in my throat. I couldn't look back. I couldn't. If I did, I was sure the creature would be right behind me, its cold, hollow gaze boring into the back of my head. I turned the wheel, speeding down the highway, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror every few seconds. I didn't know if the creature was following me, but I had to assume it was. It would be hunting me, just like the note had said. I couldn't go home. I couldn't stay in one place. I needed to keep moving. I kept my foot on the gas, feeling the rush of wind outside the car and the hum of the tires against the road beneath me. But even though I was going fast, I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still out there somewhere, watching me, waiting for the moment when I would stop running. Hours passed, the highway stretched on, a blur of streetlights and darkness, and I didn't stop. I kept driving, not knowing where I was going. The map on my phone had stopped updating once I was out of range. I had no signal. I was completely alone. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was 1:23 a.m. My eyes were heavy, but I couldn't afford to stop. I couldn't risk it, not with what I'd seen. I thought back to the note, the rules, the creature, the warning about being hunted. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It didn't make sense. But if I survived this night, I would need answers. I would need to know how to fight back, how to stop it from coming after me again. My thoughts kept circling back to that first rule, the sea salt. I had to follow it. I had to. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered whether it was really enough. Would it work? Would I be safe? Or was it just another part of some twisted game, something designed to torment me even more? I had no way of knowing, but I wasn't about to sit back and wait to find out. The rest of the night passed in a haze. I parked my car by the side of the road, far from any lights, hoping to escape notice. My mind was racing, my thoughts too jumbled to focus on anything for long. But through it all, one thought kept creeping in. The creature was still out there, and sooner or later, it would come for me. I couldn't rest. I couldn't let my guard down. I was trapped, and the rules, They didn't matter anymore. I don't know how much time passed before I felt the first stirrings of something cold and heavy behind me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly turned around. It was there, the creature, and this time it wasn't alone. If you're reading this, I don't know if I'll make it, but if I do, I'll update you. When I first heard about the houses in Michigan that you could buy for just $3,000, I thought it sounded like some kind of scam. I mean, what kind of house could you get for that little money? Surely there had to be something wrong with it, right? But curiosity got the best of me. I mean, who wouldn't be tempted to buy a house that cheap? Even if it was in bad shape, it seemed worth a look. So I started searching. I wasn't prepared for what I found. Most of the houses listed were barely standing. Windows broken, roofs caved in, walls crumbling, trees growing through the floors. It was like someone had just walked away and left the place to rot. The kind of houses you see in horror movies. But then I stumbled upon something that seemed different. It was a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. The description mentioned it had some issues, sure, but overall it seemed to be in decent condition. The price? Still just $3,000. I wasn't sure what to expect when I drove out to see it, but I sure wasn't prepared for what I found. The house was in a quiet neighborhood, tucked away at the end of a dead-end street. The trees around it were thick, casting long, heavy shadows over the yard. The house itself was old, no doubt about that, but it wasn't as bad as the others I'd seen. There were no shattered windows or holes in the roof. The porch was intact and the front yard was overgrown, sure, but it wasn't wild. It just felt abandoned. Like no one had cared for it in a while. But still, I could see potential. The house had solid bones. I stepped inside and immediately I was hit with that musty, stale air that comes with an empty house. It wasn't unbearable, but it was thick, like it had been closed up for far too long. Dust floated in the air, visible in the slats of light that broke through the dirty windows. The floors creaked under my feet, but that didn't bother me. It was the smell, the quiet that was almost oppressive. I walked through the room slowly, taking in the condition. It was surprisingly good. There was running water. The electrical was working. The hardwood floors, scratched and worn in places, looked decent enough to be restored. There was no mold, no signs of water damage or rot. Everything seemed almost perfect. But then I noticed something strange. Every door was missing. I walked into the first room. No door. The second room? No door. The pantry? No door. The bathroom? No door. Every door in the house was gone, and not just the interior doors, all of them. The front door, the back door, even the closet doors. I stood there for a moment just staring at the empty door frames. It felt wrong, like someone had deliberately taken the doors out. I had to admit, I didn't understand it. Why would anyone remove every single door in a house? But then, I thought, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the previous owners had just taken them off for some reason and never bothered to replace them. After all, this house was cheap, right? I brushed off the weirdness and made my decision. I was going to buy the house. It was the perfect project. I could get the doors replaced, maybe do some minor repairs, and have a home of my own. But things didn't go as planned. When I called the real estate agent to arrange the paperwork, I didn't expect anything unusual. What I got, though, was unsettling. A van pulled up to the house a few hours later. It wasn't the shiny, professional car I had imagined. It was a rusty old van that looked like it had been through more than a few storms. A woman stepped out. She was older, with wild, unkempt hair and dark circles under her eyes, as though she hadn't slept in days. She looked like she hadn't seen the sun in a long time. She didn't even walk up to the porch. She rushed toward me, eyes wide, pressing her face against the glass of the van's side windows. I couldn't hear her clearly, but her words tumbled out, frantic, disjointed. Over there all the time. They lost a man. Johnny never lost a man. They knew he was there, but he wasn't. No, no. She was rambling, her voice high-pitched and shaky. She wasn't making any sense. I tried to wave her off, thinking she was just some local crazy person. "All right, thanks, ma'am. Have a nice day," I said, trying to end the conversation. But she didn't stop. Johnny went into the back room. Lori went into the kitchen. They both disappeared. I was already backing away, trying to escape, but she was relentless. "They can't find him. They know he's there, but they can't." I didn't know what she was talking about. Lost people? Missing doors? It sounded like a bad dream. I brushed her off, thinking it was just some random person spouting nonsense. But as I walked back into the house, her words stuck with me. "The doors." She kept repeating it. And as I stood there staring at the empty frames, it felt like maybe she was onto something. Maybe there was something wrong with the house. But I didn't want to think about it too much. I called the real estate agency to confirm everything. The woman who answered seemed irritated, almost dismissive. She told me it was just a fixer-upper, nothing special. But when I mentioned the address, her tone shifted. "You must be from out of state," she said, her voice lowering. "You're talking about one of those cheap houses. That's the one where those kids went missing." She didn't give me much else, just a warning. A vague, unsettling warning. "If I were you, I'd unload it to the next sucker," she said, and then quickly hung up. But I wasn't ready to walk away yet. I needed to find someone to fix the place up. I wanted the doors put back. Maybe they'd been taken out for a reason, maybe not. But I wanted to make the house my own. So I called contractors, local ones, reputable ones, the kind of people who would know how to get a job done quickly. But when I mentioned the address, they all hung up, or laughed nervously, and then hung up. One man, though, stayed on the line long enough to say, "I wouldn't go near that place. I don't know what's happened there, but you're better off leaving it. Those kids, 20-year-olds, went in, never came out. Police have been called. That house is cursed. Don't say I didn't warn you." At that point, I started to feel uneasy, but I ignored it. Maybe they were just superstitious. It didn't matter. I had the house now, and I wasn't going to let some rumors stop me. So I hired a crew from out of state. I had them come in to install the 16 doors I needed. And when they arrived, I felt a sense of relief. Finally, something would be done. But the relief didn't last long. 2 days into the job, I got a call from the lead contractor, Bran. He was shaken, his voice unsteady. "We're pulling out. We can't do it." "Why?" I asked. "What's going on?" I can't explain it. We just can't go in the back room." He refused to give me a clear answer, just that they were done. They wouldn't go near the back room. That's when I knew something was wrong. I rushed over to the house. Their work truck was still parked outside, but no one was there. The house felt colder. The air was thick. I went straight to the back room. It was like stepping into a different world. The room was exactly as it had been when I first saw it, except for one thing. The ragdolls were gone. I searched for them, but they were nowhere to be found. I felt my stomach drop. Something was wrong. That's when I found the phone. Bran's phone. I picked it up, and when I opened it, I saw a history of over 350 calls, all made within 2 hours. There were also videos. I watched the first video. The camera was shaky, but I could make out what was happening. Bran and his crew had opened the back room door, but instead of the hallway that should have been there, they saw something different. A bathroom, completely out of place. They laughed nervously at first, thinking it was just a mistake. But then they opened another door, and instead of a bedroom, it opened into the guest room. The rooms kept changing. One of the men shouted in Spanish, "Ventanas!" He looked up, and through the windows, instead of the outside world, there were more rooms. They were trapped. I kept watching. The final video made my blood run cold. They returned to the back room, but the ragdolls were gone. The men were breathing heavily now, their panic evident. And then the phone died. I stood there staring at the black screen of the phone. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. I didn't know what to think. Then I heard it. The door to the back room slowly creaked closed, as if it was alive, as if it had a mind of its own. I rushed forward, but as I touched the door, I could feel the house pushing back, resisting me. I managed to wedge my fingers in just in time to stop the door from slamming shut. And then I heard it, the front door closing too. I kicked it open, barely escaping. And as I looked back, I saw something that made my heart stop. Outside, just beyond the door, my bedroom was beginning to form, like the house was trying to pull me back in. There are no doors in the house anymore. I don't think I'll ever go back. It was a frigid night, the kind where the cold seeps into your bones and refuses to let go. After hours of drowning in paperwork at the station, I longed for an escape from the drudgery of my job. My colleagues were heading to an Irish bar in downtown Boston, but I had other plans. For 11 years as a U.S. Marshal, I'd learned to cherish moments of solitude. Tonight, I wanted nothing more than to be alone by the sea, away from the cacophony of the city. The drive to the beach was unnervingly quiet. The streets of Boston, usually bustling with life, were deserted. The only sound was the rhythmic hum of my car's engine and the occasional rustle of wind against the window. As I left the city lights behind, the world around me seemed to dissolve into shadows. The beach, under the ghostly glow of the moon, appeared serene and untouched. Yet there was a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, a sense that something was not quite right. The chill in the air was palpable as I approached the beach house. The wind howled through the skeletal branches of nearby trees, carrying with it an unsettling whisper that seemed almost like a warning. The waves crashed violently against the shore, their sound amplified by the quiet night, creating an eerie, almost symphonic backdrop to my growing sense of unease. Arriving at the beach house, I was struck by its desolate appearance. It was a large, Victorian-style structure, weathered and worn by years of neglect. The paint was peeling, and the once grand porch sagged under its own weight. The windows were dark, the curtains drawn, giving the house a lifeless, hollow look. I noticed that the driveway was empty, a stark contrast to the normally bustling summer season. I approached the front door, my footsteps crunching loudly on the gravel. The porch light flickered intermittently, casting eerie, shifting shadows that seemed to dance in the darkness. Every flicker seemed to reveal a new face in the shadows, a trick of the light that played with my already fraught nerves. My heart skipped a beat as I saw a figure seated on the porch. It wasn't a person, but a life-sized doll dressed in Victorian garb. Its face was disturbingly lifelike, with glassy eyes that seemed to follow my every move. The doll's presence was unsettling, a grotesque reminder of something that should not be here. I knocked on the door, hoping for a warm reception or at least a chance to explain my predicament. Silence answered me. I knocked again, louder this time. The door creaked open slightly, revealing an interior shrouded in darkness. My anxiety grew as I peered inside, but I saw nothing except an empty hallway and a staircase leading to the unknown. The doll's eyes seemed to bore into me, a chilling gaze that made me feel as though I was being judged. I turned away and made my way back to my car, but as I did, I noticed something strange. The sound of my footsteps seemed to echo unnaturally, growing louder and more insistent, as if someone or something was following me. Back at my car, I tried to start it, but the engine sputtered and died. My frustration turned to panic as I realized the gravity of my situation. The flat tire and dead phone left me isolated and vulnerable. I glanced around, the darkness pressing in on me. The beach house loomed in the distance, its windows like hollow eyes, watching my every move. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The doll's presence seemed to linger in my mind, its unsettling eyes imprinted on my memory. The sound of the ocean grew louder, the waves crashing with a ferocity that seemed almost deliberate. The wind howled, carrying with it whispers that I couldn't quite make out, but that sent chills through my body. The shadows around me seemed to grow thicker, more oppressive. I fumbled with my car keys, my hands trembling. Every sound was amplified in the silence. The distant call of a seabird, the rustling of leaves, and the relentless pounding of my heart. I glanced over my shoulder and saw the doll's figure standing in the moonlight, its eerie stillness almost mocking. My mind raced with thoughts of what could be lurking in the darkness. The moonlight barely penetrated the thick veil of shadows around me. I decided to investigate the house further, hoping to find a phone or some means of contacting help. My footsteps felt heavy, each step a battle against the growing dread that clung to me like a second skin. As I entered the house, the air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding settled over me. The interior was even more unsettling than I had imagined. The furniture was covered in white sheets, giving the rooms a ghostly, abandoned look. The air was thick with dust, and every creak of the floorboards seemed amplified in the oppressive silence. I ventured deeper into the house, each room revealing more of its eerie character. The walls were lined with old portraits, their eyes seeming to follow me as I moved. The staircase creaked ominously beneath my weight as I climbed to the upper floor, where the feeling of dread intensified. The upper hallway was lined with closed doors, each one a potential hiding place for whatever might be lurking in the shadows. I opened one door, revealing a small, dimly lit room with a single bed and an old-fashioned rocking chair. The chair rocked gently as though someone had just left it, and I could almost hear the faint creak of the wooden floorboards beneath its sway. In the corner of the room, I spotted an old dusty mirror. As I approached it, I saw a flicker of movement behind me, a shadow that seemed to dart across the room. My breath caught in my throat and I spun around, but there was nothing there. The mirror reflected only my pale, terrified face. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. The whispers that had seemed distant now echoed clearly in my mind. "You cannot escape, Agent. Embrace your fate." My pulse quickened, and I could feel my sanity slipping away. The weight of the house, the doll's haunting eyes, and the relentless whispers all converged into a crescendo of terror. In a desperate search for answers, I found a hidden compartment in the wall of the bedroom. Inside was a small, ornate box. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing a rubber heart adorned with strange runes. The heart was oddly warm and pulsated with a faint rhythmic beat. The air around it felt charged, as though it was alive. As I held the heart, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The oppressive darkness seemed to lift slightly, and the whispers grew fainter. It was as if the heart had a direct connection to the eerie presence that had been tormenting me. I carefully placed the heart back into the box and locked it, hoping that this would end the nightmare. The house felt different now, as if a weight had been lifted. The shadows seemed less menacing, the whispers quieter. Yet the doll's presence still lingered, its eyes watching me with a cold, malevolent stare. I knew that the heart had diminished its power, but the doll was a reminder of the darkness that had been awakened. In a last-ditch effort to rid myself of the lingering dread, I examined the doll more closely. Its eyes, once unsettling, now seemed almost sorrowful. I realized that the doll was not merely a puppet of malevolence, but a vessel of something far older and more sinister, an artifact of forgotten rituals and dark magic. With the first light of dawn, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. The beach house, once a source of terror, now looked benign under the golden morning light. The doll was still there, its eerie presence now seemingly harmless. I knew I had to leave, but the encounter had left an indelible mark on me. I retrieved the box containing the cursed heart and made my way back to my car. The drive back to the city was a blur, my mind racing with the events of the night. The heart had to be destroyed or hidden away to prevent any further danger. The beach house and the doll would remain a haunting memory, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of reality. As I drove away, I took one last look at the beach house, now bathed in the warm glow of the morning sun. It seemed peaceful, but I knew better. The horrors of the night were not confined to that house. They were a part of a greater, more insidious force that could not be easily vanquished. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey into the unknown. If this story left you with a shiver down your spine and a craving for more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more spine-tingling tales. Remember, the scariest nightmares are often those that defy all explanation and linger long after the darkness has passed. Stay vigilant and keep your eyes open for shadows in the corners of your mind. Until next time, keep your wits about you, for the darkness is never truly far away. And who knows what other horrors might be lurking just beyond the edge of your reality. Keep watching, keep listening, and always stay one step ahead of the shadows. Jennifer and her friends had been eagerly awaiting this vacation for months. Celebrating 2 birthdays and escaping their daily routines, they rented a beautiful beach house, stocked up on $750 worth of groceries, and anticipated a week of sun, relaxation, and homemade meals. But as they pulled up to their rental, the excitement quickly soured into a grim realization. The first night's joy was dampened by an overpowering stench. Opening the refrigerator, Jennifer's heart sank as she found it broken, its contents teeming with spoilage. The sight of their carefully planned meals turning to waste was disheartening. With the food now a lost cause, they scrambled to save what they could by buying enormous bags of ice. Despite their efforts, it felt like they were bailing out a sinking ship with a thimble. What had started as a delightful getaway was quickly descending into a frustrating mess. Their attempts to salvage their vacation continued to falter. The following day, Jennifer's hope for a solution was dashed when the kitchen sink, once a symbol of convenience, began to back up in a grotesque display of stagnant water. Determined to fix the issue, she waded through the murky mess, her hands growing numb from the cold and the filth. She checked the pee trap, finding it clear, but the blockage was far worse than anticipated. The kitchen, once a hub of their vacation plans, was now rendered useless. This was not just an inconvenience, it was a deepening nightmare. Attempts to contact the property managers proved fruitless. Their calls and texts went unanswered, leaving Jennifer and her friends feeling utterly abandoned. It was as if the house itself had absorbed their pleas for help. The silence was deafening, amplifying their growing sense of isolation and frustration. They felt as though they were trapped in a horror movie, with no escape from the escalating series of problems that seemed to mock their efforts. The view of the beach, a major selling point for their rental, had been obstructed by an enormous sand dune. The sight was particularly disheartening given their special needs child, who required constant care and couldn't leave the house. The dune, towering and impenetrable, was a cruel joke. It stood as a stark reminder of their shattered expectations and deepening despair. The dream of beachfront relaxation had been replaced with a harsh reality, intensifying their feelings of confinement and helplessness. As the days dragged on, the house's eerie atmosphere seemed to grow more oppressive. Strange occurrences became a daily norm. Whispers filled the air, their origins unknowable. Jennifer and her friends couldn't shake the unsettling feeling of being watched, their anxiety mounting with each unexplained noise and shadow. Objects appeared to move on their own, adding to the pervasive sense of dread. The house seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, feeding off their mounting fear. One night, Jennifer was jolted awake by the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Her heart raced as she followed the sound, only to find the house in disarray. Doors were left ajar, and furniture was inexplicably rearranged. The familiar layout of the house had transformed into a nightmarish maze. Each step felt like a journey into a new level of horror. Jennifer's rational mind struggled to make sense of the chaos, but the oppressive atmosphere made clear thought nearly impossible. The house seemed to be alive with dark energy, thriving on their fear and frustration. Daily life became a battle against the house's numerous defects. Doors refused to open or close properly, bedroom doors wouldn't latch, and ceiling fans remained stubbornly still. The simple tasks of daily living turned into a series of frustrating challenges. The house, which had promised comfort and relaxation, had become a source of constant stress. Each malfunction felt like a new chapter in their growing horror story. The familiar became unfamiliar, and every minor inconvenience was amplified by the house's malevolent presence. Their attempts to maintain normalcy were repeatedly thwarted. The constant noise of dripping water, unexplained creaks, and eerie whispers took a toll on their sanity. The house seemed to feed on their anxiety, making every minor issue feel like a major crisis. The once joyous group of friends was now a collection of frayed nerves and simmering tensions. The shared experience of their nightmare had created a rift among them, with each person feeling the weight of their collective misery. As the vacation drew to a close, the sense of dread became overwhelming. The house's sinister atmosphere seemed to intensify as their departure approached. Shadows lengthened and twisted into grotesque shapes, and every creak of the floorboards felt like a final warning. The thought of leaving was a bittersweet relief. The ordeal they had endured left them exhausted and haunted. The house's malevolent presence and the numerous issues they had faced would linger in their memories as a dark reminder of their harrowing experience. Preparing to leave, Jennifer and her friends couldn't shake the sense of unease that clung to them. The beach house, with its broken promises and eerie ambiance, had become a symbol of their failed escape. The unresolved mysteries and lingering doubts about the property cast a long shadow over their departure. The house's oppressive energy and the myriad issues they encountered left a lasting impression. Their story, marked by mounting frustration and pervasive dread, serves as a chilling testament to the hidden terrors that can lurk behind even the most promising facades. Driving away, Jennifer and her friends felt a profound sense of relief mixed with lingering fear. The beach house, with its numerous flaws and sinister presence, had become a haunting symbol of how quickly paradise can transform into a nightmare. The unresolved mysteries and lingering anxieties about the property remained a dark reminder of their ordeal. The vacation, which had begun with such promise, had ended as a nightmarish experience. The house's haunting presence and the chilling events they faced would forever mark their story as a chilling reminder of the unexpected horrors that can emerge from even the most anticipated getaways. As they glanced back at the beach house one last time, Jennifer and her friends shuddered. The house, with its oppressive atmosphere and eerie occurrences, had left an indelible mark. The vacation, which had started with such hope, had ended in a harrowing ordeal. The house's haunting presence and the unresolved issues they faced remained a chilling testament to the dark side of their experience. The shadows of their nightmarish stay would forever linger in their minds, a stark reminder of how easily paradise can devolve into a living nightmare. The echoes of their terrifying experience continued to reverberate long after they had left. The beach house, with its broken promises and eerie presence, had become a powerful symbol of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most ordinary exteriors. Jennifer and her friends' vacation had transformed into a chilling reminder of how quickly a dream can become a prison of fear and frustration. The unresolved mysteries and lingering fears about the property cast a dark shadow over their lives, leaving them with a story that would forever be marked by their harrowing experience. The beach house, now a distant but haunting memory, served as a stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can lurk in the most unsuspecting places. Jennifer and her friends' ordeal had left them with a story filled with mounting tension, fear, and frustration. The lingering sense of unease and the unresolved mysteries about the property ensured that their vacation would be remembered as a chilling and unforgettable experience. The final reflections on their vacation were tinged with a deep sense of dread and disbelief. What had begun as a joyous escape had turned into a nightmarish ordeal, marked by broken promises and a pervasive sense of fear. The beach house, with its sinister atmosphere and countless issues, had become a symbol of their unsettling experience. Their story, now a chilling testament to the unexpected horrors that can emerge from even the most anticipated getaways, would remain with them long after they had left. It was a Saturday evening, and my wife and I were out with some friends for dinner. There were 5 of us, including my old college friend Terry. Terry had a deep passion for adventure and was always seeking that adrenaline rush, uncovering the mysteries of the world. He lived for the thrill, always pushing boundaries and exploring the unknown. Terry was quite sociable and loved having an audience for his stories. After downing 5 beers, he got into storytelling mode, captivating us with tales of his various travels and the crazy things he did for a thrill. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he recounted his experiences, each one more incredible than the last. We leaned in closer, drawn to his vivid storytelling. One story stood out the most: his diving escapade into the black hole. When I asked if I could record his story for my collection of strange tales, he smiled broadly and waved dismissively, granting permission. The air around us seemed to grow heavier, charged with anticipation. There was a sense that something extraordinary was about to be revealed. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my wife sighing and crossing her arms. The rest of the group grew uneasy, their eyes darting around to see if anyone else was listening in, worried about what others might think of us. There was a palpable sense of discomfort, as if we were on the edge of something profound and unsettling. "You want to know why?" Terry began, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Because there's a mystery I wanted to solve. I needed to know what was out there, and what I found in that lake changed me. I can't look at the world, at life, the same way again." "What did you find?" asked Officer M, a friend who joined us that evening. "I found that we're not the only intelligent beings on this great, big, beautiful planet of ours," Terry replied, his eyes wide with conviction. "Of course not," Officer M said, trying to play it cool. "I read somewhere that scientists discovered some species of monkeys can make tools to gather food." "No, not something like primates," Terry shook his head. "I mean, intelligent beings with advanced technologies, maybe even more advanced than ours." "And these intelligent beings are in the black hole?" Officer M asked, skepticism evident in his tone. The others at the table laughed except for Terry, whose face remained serious. "Laugh all you want," Terry said, his expression unchanging. "But I'm telling you the truth." "Okay, then tell us what you saw," one of our friends urged, intrigued despite their initial disbelief. "We've all heard stories about the lake since grade school, right?" Terry began. Everyone nodded and murmured in agreement. "Some say they've seen lights and objects fly out of the water. This lake is supposedly like a black hole. No light or sound can penetrate its depths," he continued. "Yeah, I know, it's all hearsay and not much proof. If there's proof, the pictures are usually grainy," Officer M interjected. "About 5 years ago, I visited the lake for the first time," Terry said, his voice taking on a nostalgic tone. "The sun was setting, and I was all by myself, camping near the water. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the water mirrored the colors, creating a serene, almost magical atmosphere. Out of nowhere, something washed ashore. It looked just like a man, completely still. I ran over thinking he was in serious trouble. But it wasn't a man. At first glance, it had a human-like shape, but it was definitely not human. Its skin was dark blue and greenish with a rubbery texture, and it had webbed hands and feet. Its eyes. Those eyes were large, like saucers, and as dark as night. I could see my own reflection staring back at me. The creature's stillness was unnerving, like it was waiting for something. Before I could take a picture, another creature came out of the water and snatched the body away. I was blown away. After witnessing that, I couldn't resist the urge to explore the depths of the black hole. So a few months later, I headed back. This time I packed my scuba gear. Freediving seemed too risky. My buddy Randall joined me on this adventure. He manned the boat while I geared up for the underwater expedition. The lake looked calm and inviting, a stark contrast to the foreboding tale surrounding it. It was going to be one hell of a dive. I was a couple of 100 feet deep when I caught sight of a glimmer of light far below. My curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to go even deeper. The deeper I went, the darker and colder it became. Looking back, it was a dangerous move. The pressure of the water was squeezing me, but those lights drew me in and I couldn't resist. As I descended, the outline of structures resembling buildings took shape. These structures were crafted from crystals and expertly carved from solid rocks. The sight was mesmerizing, like an underwater city straight out of a sci-fi movie. To my surprise, there was a shield covering the entire city. I theorized it was there to protect the city from the water's force, or to conceal it from being detected. I had been diving for almost an hour when Randall started telling me through the intercom to come back up. His voice sounded distant and filled with concern. But then something unbelievable happened. Three humanoid figures looking eerily similar to the creature I saw on the shore swam up to me. They held sleek metallic spears, which they pointed at me. These beings wore tight-fitting, dark suits and helmets reminiscent of jellyfish. Their movements were smooth and coordinated, like they were part of a single entity. And then they spoke to me. They communicated through telepathy. "Can you lower your voice a bit?" One of my friends whispered urgently. "There are other people around, and they're giving us looks." Terry shrugged dismissively. "Pup, don't mind them. You've had a lot to drink and you're being loud. Just lower your voice," my friend insisted. "I'm telling you something amazing that's changed my life, and you're more worried about how others perceive us," Terry said, a hint of frustration in his voice. "Hey guys, let's not argue," Officer M intervened. "Terry, finish your story. Did these creatures talk to you in English or what?" "No, not in words or a specific language," Terry explained. "It's hard to describe, but I just knew what they wanted to know." "And what was it?" Officer M asked. "They were curious about why I ventured there. What was my purpose? They made it clear the lake was off limits. I couldn't go further into its depths, and if necessary, they wouldn't hesitate to end my life. Their hostility was palpable, their demeanor grave. I had no choice but to rise to the surface, and I had to take it slow, or I'd risk getting the bends. By that point, I had been underwater for a while, and I was starting to feel pretty sick. The cold was seeping into my bones, and I could feel the pressure building around me. I seriously doubted I'd make it out alive. It felt like the black hole was ready to claim me as its next victim. As I ascended, those beings trailed me, but when I finally reached the boat, they had mysteriously vanished. I thought they were gone. The whole area became quiet, dead quiet, no wind, no movement of water. A sense of dread weighed down on us, and even Randall felt something strange was happening, even though I hadn't told him what I saw. The entire area fell into silence. Not a whisper of wind, not a ripple in the water. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something bad. I could feel it in my bones, this overwhelming sense of dread pressing down on us. It was suffocating. Even Randall, who had no idea what I had witnessed, sensed something was off. But how could I put into words the terror that gripped me? As the silence stretched on, I wondered if it was already too late. All we could do was wait. "So, what happened?" Officer M prompted. "Our boat, it was torn apart, split right down the middle as if it were made of paper. Those being spears could slice through metal like butter. At the tip of those spears was an electric charge. It crackled and sparked as they swung those deadly weapons. The air itself seemed to tremble with their power. And when they struck our boat, it was chaos, destruction. In an instant, we were left stranded, helpless in the middle of nowhere. We had to swim back to land. The water was freezing, and every stroke felt like I was pushing through molasses. But halfway through, exhaustion hit me like a ton of bricks, and everything started to blur. My limbs were heavy, and my vision was tunneling. I was on the verge of passing out, my body giving up on me. The lake felt like it was pulling me down, eager to claim another victim. Randall knew I couldn't make it on my own, so he took on the burden. He carried me, struggling through the water, his own strength wearing out. Every stroke, every gasp for air was a battle for survival. I clung to consciousness, praying I wouldn't be swallowed by the darkness. It was terrifying, knowing I might never wake up again. The shore seemed miles away, a distant, unreachable sanctuary. When we finally dragged ourselves onto the shore, we collapsed, gasping for breath. The cold air stung our lungs, but we were alive. Barely. Randall lay next to me, his chest heaving, eyes wide with shock and relief. We didn't speak for a long time, just lay there, listening to the eerie silence of the night. A server interrupted our intense moment with a cheerful voice. "How are we all doing here, folks? Are the food and drinks to your liking?" We jolted back to the present. the server's cheerful voice a stark contrast to Terry's harrowing tale. "Yes, everything is lovely." "Oh, I'd like another glass of wine, please," Terry said, managing a weak smile. He then continued, "I haven't been back to that lake since, but sometimes in the dead of night, I hear those whispers again. Maybe it's just my imagination, or perhaps those beings are trying to reach out to me. Whatever it is, it's a constant reminder that some mysteries are better left untouched." As we sat there, absorbing Terry's story, I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. The vividness of his tale, combined with the setting sun casting long shadows around us, made it hard to dismiss his words. Maybe there were things in this world that defied explanation, things that lurked just beyond our understanding. We finished our dinner in a subdued silence, each lost in our thoughts. The normalcy of our surroundings felt like a fragile facade, hiding the unknown depths that Terry had described. As we left the restaurant and headed home, the weight of his story lingered, a reminder that the world is full of mysteries, some of which we may never fully comprehend. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Terry's story than mere fantasy. The image of those dark, saucer-like eyes haunted my dreams, and the whispers of the ocean seemed to follow me even in my sleep. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of unease, the line between reality and fiction blurred by the vividness of Terry's tale. Life went on as it always does, but the memory of that evening stayed with me. Occasionally, I would catch myself glancing at the horizon, half expecting to see something extraordinary. And every now and then, I would hear the faintest whisper in the wind, a reminder of the mysteries that lie just beneath the surface of our world. It was the summer of 2009, and the sun blazed with an intensity that felt almost deliberate, as if nature itself was punishing me. The oppressive heat seemed to cling to every inch of my skin, each bead of sweat a reminder of my discomfort. The beach, with its endless expanse of golden sand and relentless waves, was my personal nightmare. I longed for the cool embrace of cloud-covered skies, a refuge from the glaring sun that was now my prison. Forced into this sun-drenched purgatory by my family's whims, I struggled to find solace amid the bright, cheerful chaos. The beach, which was supposed to be a place of relaxation and joy, felt like an unending gauntlet of heat and sand that drained my energy and patience. My family was the quintessential image of Californian perfection: sun-kissed skin, beachy hair, and an endless enthusiasm for the sea. My siblings, with their sun-bleached hair and athletic builds, seemed to embody everything that I wasn't. Their laughter and games were a constant reminder of how out of place I felt. I, with my dark hair and pale skin, felt like a stark contrast against their sunlit joy. My presence seemed like a shadow, unwanted and out of place in their sun-soaked world. They danced in the waves and played beach volleyball, while I, an unwilling participant, retreated to the shade with a book, seeking refuge in fictional worlds far removed from the one that surrounded me. Their cheerful banter was a constant reminder of my own disconnection. It was on the twins' 16th birthday that my reluctant beachside sojourn took a turn for the bizarre. Despite my protests, I was dragged to the shore, forced to endure the sun's harsh glare while I clung to an Edgar Allan Poe novel. The irony of reading about dark, brooding tales while surrounded by the glaring light of the Californian beach was not lost on me. It provided a grim sort of comfort, a sanctuary of darkness amidst the blinding brightness. As the sun set and the once lively beach became a quiet, oppressive space, a sense of dread began to settle over me. The horizon bled into shades of orange and purple, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to stretch toward me with an almost sentient intent. Twilight descended with a heavy, almost palpable darkness. The joyful noise of the beach was replaced by an unsettling silence, broken only by the rhythmic crashing of the waves. Around 2 a.m. I was jolted from my restless slumber by an eerie scratching sound. It started faintly, almost like a distant whisper, but soon grew into a deep, guttural growl that seemed to seep through the walls. The sound was not just disturbing, it felt alive, as if it was trying to claw its way into my very soul. My heart raced as I lay in bed, paralyzed by a primal fear. Every creak of the house seemed amplified in the silence, each thud of the waves against the shore like a metronome marking the passage of my terror. The stench that followed was a horrifying assault on my senses, a nauseating mix of rotting fish and brine that seemed to fill the room. It was as though someone had dumped the entire catch of the day right onto my bed, the scent so overpowering that it felt like it was suffocating me. My attempts to convince myself it was just a nightmare were futile. The growling continued, now joined by the unnerving sound of something sniffing just outside my door, a sinister reminder that I was not alone. I tried to steady my breathing, but the smell seemed to wrap around my throat like a vice, making each breath a struggle. Shadows danced across the walls, twisted and distorted by the dim light from the hallway, creating shapes that seemed almost too purposeful in their movement. I mustered the courage to investigate, creeping through the darkened house. The creature's voice was a chilling, guttural rasp that seemed to echo from a dark, forgotten place. It spoke in fragmented phrases that reverberated with a dreadful clarity. Water, death, mine, ripping, tearing, eating, good meat. Each word was a grim declaration of its predatory intent. The creature's fangs dripped with the blood of my family, a grotesque testament to its savagery. The sight was both horrifying and mesmerizing, a living nightmare that defied any attempt at rational explanation. The blood-streaked walls, the torn remnants of clothing, and the scattered personal belongings created a grotesque tableau of horror. I could almost see the echoes of the violence, the splashes of blood, and the desperate struggle that had taken place. The moonlight filtered through the windows, casting shifting, sinister shadows on the walls. The creature that awaited me in the hallway was beyond comprehension, a grotesque fusion of human and something far more terrifying. Its body was a grotesque parody of movement, writhing and pulsating with a rhythm that was both hypnotic and horrifying. Tentacles and appendages moved in a nauseating dance, and its eyes, dark and malevolent, seemed to swirl with an ancient, malevolent intelligence. The air grew colder, the darkness denser, as the creature's presence seemed to sap the warmth from the room. The very fabric of reality felt like it was warping around it, distorting perception and time. The scene was one of unspeakable horror. My family, who had been vibrant and full of life, now lay lifeless and torn apart. The creature's brutality left me numb, struggling to comprehend the enormity of the violence I had witnessed. My scream, a raw and desperate cry, pierced the silence of the night, echoing through the empty streets. The creature, startled by my terror, fled down a sewer drain, leaving behind a scene of unimaginable carnage. My mind was reeling from the shock, unable to fully grasp the horror that had unfolded. The silence that followed was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos that had preceded it. The once familiar surroundings now seemed foreign and menacing, every shadow a potential threat. The arrival of neighbors and authorities was a blur of confusion and disbelief. My frantic account of the night's events was met with skepticism and derision. They suggested I had suffered a psychological breakdown and admitted me to a mental facility for evaluation. Despite exhaustive tests, no evidence of mental illness or foul play was found. The official records of that night were conveniently erased, leaving me with nothing but my own terrifying memories. The experience left me grappling with the haunting reality of what I had seen, aware that no one would ever truly believe me. The facility's sterile, oppressive environment did little to calm my frayed nerves, and the isolation only deepened my sense of dread. If you ever find yourself at Davenport Beach, California, exercise extreme caution. The creature that terrorized my family may still lurk in the shadows, waiting for its next opportunity. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind, feels like a harbinger of something sinister. The shadows in my room seem to come alive, shifting and moving as if trying to communicate some unspeakable truth. I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me, lurking just out of sight. The fear that once seemed confined to that single night has become a pervasive, gnawing terror that infiltrates every aspect of my life. The creature's presence, though unseen, remains a constant specter, a reminder that some nightmares never truly end. I've found myself unable to escape the feeling that I am being watched, that unseen eyes are tracking my every move. Stay vigilant and aware of the shadows that move just beyond your sight. The most terrifying fears are often those we can't fully understand or explain. Keep your lights on, lock your doors, and remember, there are things in the darkness that defy explanation and challenge the limits of human comprehension. You never know what might be lurking just beyond the edge of your perception, waiting for the right moment to emerge from the shadows. The true horror lies not in what we can see, but in the unknown horrors that lie just beyond our understanding. The darkness may hold secrets that are better left undisturbed, and sometimes the greatest terror comes from what we cannot see or comprehend. The horror of that night has never truly left me, and the thought that it might still be out there is a constant source of dread. If this story has unsettled you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling tales that delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche. Sometimes the most terrifying horrors are those that defy explanation and lurk just beyond our perception. The thin line between reality and nightmare is often disturbingly porous, and the darkness hides secrets that are best left undisturbed. Even now, the echoes of that night haunt me. I often hear the scratching sound in the dead of night, a haunting reminder of the creature that once terrorized me. It's always been my sanctuary, but this summer, it became my nightmare. I never imagined that a place so peaceful could harbor something so terrifying. It all began on the 8th day of our stay at the beach house Matt had rented for us. I remember the evening vividly, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink, the gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore, and the distant rhythmic beam of the lighthouse cutting through the approaching dusk. It was supposed to be another idyllic night in our secluded paradise. A night where the only worry would be which book to read next or what time to take our next walk along the shore. I was 23 on a summer break, staying in a secluded beach house my boyfriend Matt had rented. It was a charming place, a few miles from the nearest town, with only a handful of homes nearby. A lighthouse cast its light over the beach, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Every day we enjoyed the sun, the waves, and the tranquility. Matt had bought crab legs for dinner, and as he prepared them, I took a shower and headed to the second-floor balcony to read a book. The house itself was a quaint two-story structure with weathered wooden panels and large windows that allowed the salty sea breeze to flow through. Inside, it was furnished with cozy, beach-themed decor. Seashells, driftwoods, the sound of the waves and the gulls almost lulled me to sleep. As the sun set, I noticed something strange in the water. At first, I thought it was driftwood, but as it came closer, it started to look more like an arm. My heart began to race, and I leaned over the railing for a better look. The lighthouse beam briefly illuminated it, revealing a skeletal, elongated form. I froze, unable to look away. Matt called me for dinner, but I couldn't tear my eyes from the creature. I tried to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe it was a large piece of seaweed or some debris from a shipwreck. But deep down, I knew this was different. The way it moved, slowly and purposefully, sent chills down my spine. I felt a growing sense of unease, like the air around me had suddenly turned colder. The once comforting sound of the waves now seemed ominous, each crash against the shore echoing like a distant warning. I could feel my pulse quicken, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. It was as if the beach, my sanctuary, had suddenly turned against me, revealing a dark, hidden side I had never imagined. The creature's form was hard to discern in the dim light, but its presence was unmistakable. It seemed to slither and crawl, its limbs moving in unnatural ways. The longer I watched, the more I felt a creeping dread, a primal fear that urged me to flee. But I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, my eyes fixed on the monstrosity emerging from the sea. Each moment stretched into eternity as the creature slowly made its way onto the beach, its body glistening with seawater under the faint light. I finally snapped out of my trance and rushed downstairs to tell Matt. "There's something in the water," I said, my voice shaking. He tried to calm me, but when he saw the fear in my eyes, he followed me back to the balcony. The creature was still there, dragging itself onto the beach. It was huge, at least 10 feet long, with countless eyes scanning the area. "Get your gun, Matt," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. We both stared in horror as the creature's many eyes seemed to lock onto our position. Its movements were jerky and unnatural, as if it was struggling against an invisible force. The way it moved on those spindly limbs reminded me of a grotesque puppet, controlled by some unseen hand. My mind raced with questions. What was it? Where did it come from? And most terrifyingly, why was it here? Each unanswered question only fueled my growing dread. The creature's presence felt like an intrusion into our world, a reminder that the ocean, vast and unexplored, still held secrets beyond our understanding. Matt grabbed his gun, his face pale with fear. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice tense. We watched as the creature continued to drag itself along the beach, its eyes never leaving us. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and fast in my ears. The world around us seemed to fade away, leaving only the terrifying reality of the monster inching closer and closer. We watched in horror as the creature began to follow our earlier path along the beach. It seemed to be sniffing the sand, tracking our scent. "Hurry!" I urged Matt as the creature drew closer. He ran to get his gun, and I locked the balcony door, praying it would hold. The dragging sound grew louder, and then it stopped. The creature was right below us. Matt aimed his gun, but before he could fire, the creature let out a bone-chilling screech. It was a sound that seemed to pierce my very soul. Matt fired a shot, but the creature vanished into the darkness. The screech echoed in my ears long after it had stopped, leaving a heavy silence that was even more unnerving. I could feel the vibrations of its movement through the floor, each step sending a jolt of fear through my body. Matt stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What was that thing?" he muttered, more to himself than to me. The air around us felt charged with electricity, as if the very atmosphere was waiting for something to happen. Every creak of the house, every whisper of wind through the cracks seemed amplified, turning our once cozy refuge into a prison of fear. The creature's screech had been otherworldly, a blend of high and low tones that made my skin crawl. It was a sound that seemed to resonate deep within my bones, awakening a primal terror I hadn't known existed. Matt's hands were shaking as he reloaded the gun, his movements quick and desperate. "Stay here," he said, his voice firm but tinged with fear. He stepped out onto the balcony again, gun at the ready. I could see the determination in his eyes, but also the fear. We both knew that whatever was out there wasn't something we could easily fight off. We stayed up all night, too terrified to sleep. When morning came, we cautiously went outside to investigate. The sand was marked with deep drag lines, leading from the water to the house and back. The walls beneath the balcony were gouged as if by enormous claws. "We're leaving," Matt said, and I nodded in agreement. We packed our things and left, abandoning the remaining days of our vacation. As we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being watched. Every creak of the car, every shadow that flitted across the road, made my heart skip a beat. The sense of relief I expected to feel as we put distance between us and the beach house never came. Instead, a nagging fear lingered, whispering that this wasn't over. The memory of those eyes scanning the beach with a hunger that felt almost sentient haunted me. I knew that whatever that creature was, it had our scent, and I dreaded the thought that it might one day follow us. Even the bright sunlight of the new day couldn't dispel the shadow that had been cast over my heart. Matt drove in silence, his knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes darted to the rearview mirror, as if expecting to see the creature following us. I clutched my seatbelt, my mind replaying the events of the previous night over and over. What was that thing? Where had it come from? And why had it targeted us? These questions gnawed at me, each one a thorn in my mind that refused to be removed. We didn't speak much during the drive. The weight of what had happened hung heavily between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of the horror we had faced. I glanced at Matt, seeing the strain on his face, the fear that mirrored my own. We had escaped, but the experience had left us scarred. The beach, once a place of joy and relaxation, had become a nightmare that we couldn't escape, even miles away. As we drove away, I glanced back at the beach. The lighthouse beam swept over the water, and for a moment I thought I saw it again, lurking just beneath the waves. I'll never forget that summer, and I'll never return to that beach. Some things are best left undisturbed. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still hear that screech, feel the cold, and see those eyes. They say the sea holds many secrets, and I believe them. For some secrets are too terrifying to uncover. At night in my dreams, I am back on that balcony, the creature's eyes locked onto mine, and I wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding. The beach was my sanctuary, but now it's a place of nightmares. Matt and I tried to move on with our lives, but the memory of that creature lingered like a dark cloud. We became more cautious, always locking our doors and windows, always watching our surroundings. We avoided the ocean, the sound of waves now a trigger for the terror we experienced. Our relationship, once filled with carefree joy, was now overshadowed by a shared trauma that neither of us could fully articulate. We spoke of it rarely, as if speaking the words would summon the creature back into our lives. But in the quiet moments when we were alone with our thoughts, we both knew it was still out there, waiting. Months passed, but the fear never truly left us. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those eyes, heard that screech. I would wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the echoes of my nightmares lingering in the dark. I took to leaving lights on, even during the day, seeking comfort in the brightness. But the shadows seemed to grow longer, the darkness deeper. Matt and I drifted apart, each consumed by our own fears. The beach house was sold, but I couldn't help but think of the new owners. Did they know what lurked beneath the waves? Would they too encounter the creature? These thoughts plagued me, adding to the weight of the trauma I carried. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself searching online for any information about the creature. I found stories, myths, and legends of sea monsters, but nothing that matched what we had seen. It was as if the creature was a ghost, a figment of our imagination. But the scars on the house, the drag marks in the sand, those were real. They were proof of our encounter, evidence of the horror we had faced. And yet there was no explanation, no understanding, only fear. Memories are ghosts. That's all that's left here. The beach house is empty, lifeless, dead. Devoid of occupants, it is nothing more than wood, nails, and paint. T.S. Eliot said, "Home is where one starts from, but this is where it ends." Instead of music and laughter, there is stillness, quiet except for the ocean's dull rumble, calling out from over the dunes. What was once a calming soundtrack to our weekends here, now bubbles in the distance with a low menace. "Come to us," it says. I scowl at the horizon. "Knock it off, you son of a bitch." Out of habit, I fill the kettle, place it on the stove, and ignite the gas burner. Luckily, the big canister at the front end of the house still has some gas. All I need now is a tea bag and a cup. I search through the cupboards. Out of habit, I fill the kettle, place it on the stove, and ignite the gas burner. Luckily, the big canister at the front end of the house still has some gas. All I need now is a tea bag and a cup. I search through the cupboards. Nothing, of course, except dust and dead bugs, their spindly limbs curled up toward the sky like petrified trees. There are no cups, of course. They got cleaned out on my last trip out here, then dropped off at the Sally's in town, along with all the other unwanted detritus. The jug begins to whistle, laughing at me. "Yeah, you and the goddamn sea." Right. No more putting off the inevitable. Might as well just get on with it. I shake open a plastic rubbish bag and start feeding it with bits of miscellaneous debris. Dull reminders of a previous life. Pieces of paper, business cards, takeaway menus, and half-stamped coffee cards. Anything of value, sentimental or otherwise, has been taken already. A real estate agent grins up at me from a garish brochure, urging me to choose them. There is a barely hidden desperation behind their otherwise perfect smile. Into the bag with your photoshopped teeth and your doer-uppers. Your indoor-outdoor flow. Didn't need you in the end anyway. A private sale saved me a hefty chunk of change there. Small mercies and all. I move on to the kitchen drawers. More meaningless crap in there. But that doesn't halt the hopeful anticipation of finding something I might have missed the last time I was here. A faded Polaroid of us, or maybe one of those cute notes you used to leave me. The ones adorned with a hideously cheesy movie quote like, "You complete me," and then a drawing of someone vomiting. The air is stale with dust and sun-baked surfaces. If dust is skin cells, then a part of you must still be here, a permanent fixture. I run a finger through the dust, catching a gray smear, and raise it to my nose in the faint and foolish hope that it smells like you. Stupid. The idea of someone coming in and carelessly sweeping you away just doesn't seem right. But that's where we're at. The rubbish bag has eaten its fill, its distended stomach threatening to split and spill its innards. My time here is up. The cleaner will do the rest. Time for one last walkthrough. My mind inserts wall hangings, pieces of furniture, and of course, you into the bare skeleton of the house. Vivid, crystalline memories that will surely fade like a sun-bleached Polaroid, devolving into a blinding, indecipherable white blur, like staring into the sun. I lock the front door and slip the key under the mat. The cleaner will be here soon, and it's not like there's anyone else around in the off-season. That's why we liked coming here in the winter. There was no one else around. We could do as we pleased. Drink wine and light bonfires in the sand dunes. I would strum tunes on that old acoustic guitar I found at a garage sale. Sometimes, if we were feeling particularly bold, we would strip off and plunge into the frigid waters of the Pacific Ocean. The ocean was unseasonably warm the last time we swam in it. Looking back, it almost felt like a lure, a trap. It's time to go, but I can't. Not yet. The ocean sounds louder now, raising its voice, admonishing my departure. Come on down, we miss you. Folk you. You took everything. We are sorry. Come and see us one last time. I spit into the sand as if it were a meaningful gesture, as if the ocean could sense my disdain. I gaze out across the dunes to the cool blue expanse in the distance. The car keys jingle expectantly in my hand. In a minute, there's no rush. I walk past the station wagon, drawn to the rough path that takes me down to the sea, where the currents are strong and treacherous. I reach the beach and start to undress. A strong wind whips across my body, stinging my legs with sand, goading me on towards the expectant ocean. Come on in, the sea whispers. She's still here, waiting for you. I hesitate, the wind tearing at my clothes and skin. Memories of her laughter echo in my mind, blending with the roar of the waves. The sea, with its relentless call, feels like a living entity, one that harbors both memories and malice. I think back to the last time we were here together, the warmth of her smile contrasting sharply with the cold bite of the wind now. I remember the first time we came to this house, the excitement of setting foot in our own little paradise, the way we laughed and danced in the living room, feeling the freedom that this place promised. Now those memories feel like cruel taunts, mocking the emptiness that fills the space. I look back at the house, its windows like hollow eyes staring back at me. The ocean sounds louder now, raising its voice, admonishing my departure. Come on down, we miss you. We are sorry, come and see us one last time. I spit into the sand, as if it were a meaningful gesture, as if the ocean could sense my disdain. I gaze out across the dunes to the cool blue expanse in the distance. The car keys jingle expectantly in my hand. In a minute. There's no rush. I walk past the station wagon, drawn to the rough path that takes me down to the sea, where the currents are strong and treacherous. Each step feels heavy, the weight of the past pulling me back. I can almost see her standing at the water's edge, her silhouette blending with the horizon. I reach the beach and start to undress. A strong wind whips across my body, stinging my legs with sand, goading me on toward the expectant ocean. The cold bites at my skin, but it's nothing compared to the icy grip of grief. I feel the sea's pull, an almost magnetic force that beckons me closer. "Come on in," the sea whispers. "She's still here, waiting for you." I stand waist deep in the ocean, feeling the currents tugging at me. The water is freezing, a stark contrast to the warm embrace I remember. I shout into the wind, cursing the sea for taking everything from me. The ocean's voice is a low hum, almost apologetic. I look out across the vast expanse of water, stretching endlessly to the horizon. The waves crash against my legs, pulling me deeper with each surge. It's a powerful force, both alluring and terrifying. I can almost hear her voice in the wind, soft and comforting, but also urging me to let go. The ocean seems to understand my pain, its whispers mingling with the cries of seagulls overhead. I reach the beach and start to undress. A strong wind whips across my body, stinging my legs with sand, goading me on towards the expectant ocean. "Come on in," the sea whispers. "She's still here, waiting for you." I hesitate, then turn back to the shore. Confronting the ocean won't bring you back. The sea may hold our memories, but it also holds danger. As I walk back to the house, the ocean's call fades behind me. I lock the door one last time, leaving the key under the mat. Driving away, I glance back at the house and the ocean beyond. As I was about to call the police, I noticed the front door was slightly open. I knew I had locked it before I went to bed. With trembling hands, I stepped forward and peered through the gap, my heart racing. The darkness inside seemed to swallow the light from my phone. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the shadows and I stumbled back, falling to the ground. By the time I looked up, the figure was gone, and the door was wide open, swaying slightly in the wind. I scrambled to my feet and slammed the door shut, locking it again. That night, I didn't sleep a wink, constantly checking the door, knowing that whatever or whoever it was might come back. In the rearview mirror, the beach house stands silent, but the ocean still whispers, promising that this is not the end. "She's still here, waiting for you," it murmurs, leaving me with an unsettling feeling that I might one day return to the abandoned shore. As I drive away, the road winds through the familiar landscape, the same route we took so many times together. Each turn brings a flood of memories, moments of joy and sorrow intertwined. The trees lining the road seem to reach out, their branches like skeletal fingers, reminding me of what I've lost. The sky darkens, clouds gathering as if in mourning, casting long shadows that dance across the pavement. The radio plays softly, a melancholic tune that mirrors my mood. I glance at the passenger seat, half expecting to see her there, smiling back at me. But it's empty, just like the house we once filled with love and laughter. The emptiness is suffocating, a void that no amount of time can fill. I grip the steering wheel tighter, trying to focus on the road ahead, but my mind drifts back to the moments we shared. I remember the bonfires on the beach, the way the flames danced in her eyes, reflecting the warmth of her spirit. We would sit for hours talking about everything and nothing, the stars above us a silent witness to our dreams. The ocean song was a constant companion, its rhythm matching the beat of our hearts. Now that song feels like a dirge, a lament for what once was. The car's headlights cut through the gathering gloom, illuminating the path ahead. But the memories continue to haunt me, each one a ghost that refuses to be exorcised. I think about the last time we swam in the ocean, how we held each other close, the water around us a protective cocoon. It was unseasonably warm, almost as if the sea itself was trying to comfort us. But now that warmth feels like a cruel trick, a false promise that everything would be okay. I pull over to the side of the road, needing a moment to gather my thoughts. The engine idles, a steady hum that contrasts with the chaos in my mind. I take a deep breath, the air heavy with the scent of rain. The first drops begin to fall, splattering against the windshield, a prelude to the storm that is brewing. I watch as the raindrops race each other, merging and splitting, a dance that mirrors my own turmoil. The rain intensifies, drumming against the roof of the car, a relentless reminder of the passage of time. I close my eyes, letting the sound wash over me, hoping it can cleanse the pain that has taken root in my heart. But the memories are stubborn, clinging to me like the mist that envelops the road. I open my eyes and see her face in the raindrops, each one a fragment of a moment we shared. I know I can't stay here forever, trapped in the past. I have to keep moving forward, even if it feels like I'm leaving a part of myself behind. I put the car in gear and continue down the road, the rain a constant companion. The wipers struggle to keep the windshield clear, their rhythmic motion a metronome that sets the pace for my thoughts. Each sweep brings a new memory, a reminder of what I've lost and what I must learn to live without. The road ahead is long and uncertain, but I know I must face it. The ocean's whispers may call to me, but I can't let them pull me under. I have to find my own way, even if it means walking alone. The storm rages on, but I find solace in the knowledge that I carry her with me, in my heart and in my memories. And maybe one day, the ghosts will find peace, and the whispers will fade, leaving only the echoes of a love that was once strong and true. Hi, David. Long time, I know. Let's fix that. Remember that treehouse we used to hang out in back in the day? Let's meet up there. Have a few drinks or something. Write me back if you're down. Your good friend Sean. I could hardly believe the email in front of me. I couldn't believe that Sean Paul had contacted me. We were inseparable back in elementary to junior high, drifted apart in high school, hadn't spoken since the first year of college. That was nearly 6 years ago. At the risk of sounding like a dick friend, this was certainly out of the blue. But we were really good friends, and I'd always felt guilty about not keeping in touch. With that in mind, I decided to write him back. It wouldn't hurt to see how he was doing after all. Hell, maybe we'd be able to rekindle that old friendship. Ever since starting full-time employment, my life's gotten kind of dry, so it might be a nice change of pace. Hi, Sean. Crazy hearing from you after all this time. Sure, let's meet up. I'm free this weekend. David. It felt weird signing my name off at the end there, almost like I was emailing my boss or something. I thought back to our times in the treehouse for the next few days. I couldn't help but smile. Those experiences were the innocence of youth personified. I remember reading manga, watching movies on his iPod Touch, and the one time we snuck up a few of my brother's beers just to see what they would taste like. Not so innocent, I guess. Sure, I was excited. The weekend finally came and I drove out to the local forest. When I moved out, I didn't go very far. It was about a 15-minute drive there from my apartment. We'd agreed to meet at 5 p.m., so I arrived at 4:30. On the way there, I began to wonder, what were the chances that our treehouse would still be there? I mean, it was over a decade ago since we'd last gone up. Nevertheless, it wasn't a huge issue. I was sure we'd be able to just sit by the river and drink if it had been torn down or something. Still, I was curious to see what it might look like after all these years. I still remembered exactly where it was. There are just some things you don't forget. By the river, just right of the clearing. It also wasn't a huge forest. My eyes lit up with nostalgia as I saw it. I suppose it looked exactly like how I remembered it. A bit worse for wear, but still intact. I put down my 6-pack of beer at the trunk of the tree. I recalled the makeshift door that we'd built. At the time, we thought it was some marvel of engineering for kids our age. It was a legitimate, functioning door, similar to one that would lead into an attic. I grinned as I began climbing the wooden slabs that we'd hammered into the tree all those years ago. It was our attempt at creating a ladder, and it honestly worked well enough. I was brimming with excitement as I reached the entrance. With a big smile on my face, I reached up and tried pushing the door open. But nothing happened. I mean, my hand just hit a wall of unmoving wood. I looked up and what I saw confused me to no end. Instead of the actual door that we'd made, one just seemed to be crudely drawn on with marker. I stood there for a second, wondering what the hell was going on. I mean, was this the wrong treehouse? I looked around the forest again. Not a chance. Like I said, there's just some things that you don't forget. I continued inspecting the space where the door should have been. It wasn't as if somebody had taped or glued it shut. It was clean, unbroken wood. I climbed back down and looked at the treehouse from the ground. Still the same way I remembered it. A little banged up after all these years, but still unmistakable. Vaguely cube-shaped, brown wood, 2 small windows on either side, but no door. Somehow there was no door. It bothered me so much that I began searching the surrounding area. Maybe somehow this was the wrong treehouse, despite it looking the same and being in the exact same vicinity. I searched for about 25 minutes without finding anything before calling it quits. I walked back to the treehouse and looked up at it again. It was a puzzling situation, to say the least. I looked at my phone, seeing that it had become 5 p.m. Sean should have been arriving soon. At least I'd have somebody to share my confusion with. As I waited for him to come, I wondered why somebody would build a treehouse that you couldn't enter. Hell, how did they carve out the window in the first place? My eyes began wandering around the forest and eventually back up to the treehouse. And then I froze in place. Somebody was staring at me through the window. They seemed to be standing a few feet back, so it was almost like looking at a shadow. I couldn't make out any facial features at all, but one thing was for sure, it sure as hell wasn't a kid. The broad shoulders gave that away. I stared at this mystery person for about a minute before they stepped back and out of view. The hairs on my arms stood up as I began backing up myself. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel right at all. Soon enough, I was in an all-out sprint. I got back to my car and noticed it was still the only one in the lot. I took out my phone and texted Sean, telling him I couldn't make it and for him not to come himself. I waited around 30 minutes for a response before finally driving off. I kept looking back at the forest the whole time, looking for that person in the treehouse. I got home a few hours ago. Sean hasn't responded yet, which worries me. Maybe he got there even before I did. Even stranger, I remember feeling a vague sense of familiarity when that person looked down at me, almost like I'd seen them before, which was impossible, because I literally have no memories of anybody like that. I didn't even get a good look at their face. Sean texted me later that night. My hands shook as I opened my phone to read it, and I wasn't sure why. I mean, if I was getting a text from him, that meant he was safe, right? This is the message he sent me. Did you see him? I must have looked at the message for 20 straight minutes. Did I see him? I sure as hell did, but I decided to play dumb for the time being, just to see how Sean would react. Did I see who? I certainly didn't see you there. In any case, his next message caught me off guard. You know what I'm talking about. I want you to answer me seriously. I waited for a bit before responding. This was getting interesting, but not in a good way. This is how the rest of our conversation went. I turned to Sean, confused. Who is he? I asked. Sean raised an eyebrow. So you did see him? I sighed. Yeah, I saw him. So who the hell is he? Sean shook his head like he already knew my answer. You still don't remember, do you? Just like I thought. Remember what? I snapped. What the hell's going on? Sean gave me a serious look. Are you going to believe what I'm about to tell you? I paused. Depends on what you're going to say. He looked at me like I had no choice. Meet me at the forest parking lot tomorrow at 6 p.m. I know you don't remember, but I can help you. But we can't run from this. That was it. The whole conversation just left me with more questions than answers. What the hell was I not remembering? And why was Sean acting so damn strange? And most importantly, who the hell was the guy in our treehouse? Sean used to be my best friend, but that didn't mean I was just going to trust him blindly. So I decided to call June, someone we both knew well, and someone I actually still kept in touch with. I needed answers. Here's how the conversation went. David, What's up? June's voice sounded familiar, like no time had passed. June, do you remember Sean from junior high? I asked, hoping for some sort of clue. There was a long silence. Then she spoke, her voice sharp. David, what? This better not be some sick joke. Joke? How the hell would this be a joke? Look, I just need to know if you've talked to him recently, if you know what he's been up to. She hesitated. Did you see him? Yeah, I saw him, and he was acting really damn weird. David, you can't go back. Go back where? I asked, feeling my confusion grow. I thought June would act as a voice of sanity here, but that clearly wasn't going to happen. The only explanation that made sense to me was that this was all just one elaborate prank that they were both in on. Ridiculous, I know. But so are the circumstances. In the middle of our call, I got another text from Sean. Don't tell anybody about this, especially June. Please don't get her involved. I was starting to get fed up with this whole mystery bullshit. I was ready to give Sean a piece of my mind. I was going to ask, no, demand that he tell me exactly what was going on and what he wanted from me. But something caught my eye before I could send the message. Somebody was standing in my backyard. My heart nearly dropped when I saw it. My porch light was on, but they were standing in the farthest corner, so I could hardly make out any explicit details. It seemed to be a tall man with broad shoulders, but that was about all I could discern. I looked down at my phone and dialed 911, but when I looked back up, the person had disappeared. Or so I thought. I turned my head slightly and realized they were actually standing on my porch. I couldn't stop myself from screaming this time. Now, fully illuminated, I could see that this person was wearing a black tracksuit and one of those white plastic theater masks with a grinning mouth. It was almost too small for his face. The sudden sight of him petrified me to the point where I couldn't move a muscle for the longest time. Eventually, the man lurched forward and smashed his head into my glass door, cracking his mask in the process. And then he did it again and again. After the fourth time, it shattered. That's when I started running. I could hear his heavy footsteps reverberating through my empty house as I barreled out my front door. I wasn't quite sure where to go, so I just ran into a nearby convenience store before dialing the police. My hands shook as I told them what had happened, and they said that they'd send somebody right over. After calming myself down, I decided to call Sean as well. Obviously, I was still kind of pissed at him, but I needed answers, and I needed them soon. He picked up after the first ring. Sean, can you guess what the fuck just happened to me? What? Some asshole just broke into my house. Was he wearing a mask? What? I mean, yes. How the fuck did you know? Did you call the police? Obviously. No shit. I could hear him sigh over the phone, which pissed me off even more. Look, you want to stop playing this weird fucking game with me? I haven't seen you in forever and then you come back into my life with this kind of bullshit? He chuckled. They really did us dirty, didn't they? Say one more line of cryptic nonsense and I'll report you to the police myself. You can't go back to your house now. They'll be waiting for you. And don't ask me who they are. I'll tell you in person. You remember that diner we'd go to during our first year of college? It's been open for a few weeks now. Meet me there ASAP. Why there? 'Cause I need beer and coffee. Also, I think they've figured out where I'm living as well. In the meantime, don't trust the cops. He hung up afterwards. I stood there for the longest time, trying not to let the disbelief wash over me. About a minute later, I got another call. This time, it was the police. Mr., my last name? We've taken care of him. For now, we need you come back to your house and answer some questions. Come back. I told them that I'd be on my way, which was really the only response that I could give them. I thought about Sean's warning. If I trusted him and he really had gone psycho over the years, then I was in big trouble. But at the same time, there was something in the police officer's tone that I didn't quite like. Sean sounded more genuine. I suppose he always had been. After another few minutes of consideration, I decided to go to the diner. At least it was a public place. He wouldn't kill me there, right? I left the store and began making my way over. I'd been standing in the chip aisle for a while and the cashier looked about ready to call the cops himself. Since I'd left my car back at the house, I was forced to take public transit, which I really didn't want to do. Now I had the virus to worry about on top of everything else. The bus was empty when I got on, so I decided to close my eyes for a minute. It had been a long day, and I thought I deserved some rest. When I opened them back up a few stops later, 4 more people had gotten on. They were all wearing those theater masks, all of which had varying expressions, and they were staring right at me.
Hey, you. Hey, you. Yes, you.
Now, I don't know what you would have done in a scenario like this, but I kind of just froze. I'm not sure how long it lasted. Could have been a minute, maybe 10. At one point, the bus stopped moving, and I could see the driver putting on his own mask. Not an ideal situation, to say the least. After working up some courage, I decided to make a break for it. I bolted up and dashed down the aisle. Not really sure what I was expecting there. That nobody was going to try and stop me? One of the masked individuals that had gotten on was a large, burly guy. He grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me back before I could escape the bus. His fingers dug into my flesh as he centered me towards him. "Are you going to come back?" he asked in a disturbing, monotonous tone. I didn't answer. Instead, I shrugged away from his grip and ran off. He definitely let it happen. If he'd actually been trying to keep me in place, there's no way I would have budged. Thankfully, nobody followed me off. Instead, they just sat there, watching me as the bus drove away. Things had gone from annoying to downright horrifying. I didn't get it. What the hell did they want from me? It clearly wasn't money. They would have just held me there. My mind kept going back to the idea that this was all a prank. As absurd as that was, it still made the most sense. If that was the case, then I was beyond pissed at Sean. This was not something that I needed right now. I decided to walk to the diner. Thankfully, I wasn't accosted by any more people in masks on the way. I expected to enter the place and find a full camera crew waiting for me, and I was ready to chew them all out. But that wasn't the case. Instead, I found Sean sitting at a table alone. Oh, I thought, I guess the grand reveal will come later. I stormed over to his table and sat down, nearly fuming. "What the hell is going on, man? What the fuck is this?" He looked up at me and smiled, a face I hadn't seen in some time. I don't know if it was just me, but it looked as if he'd aged about 20 years. "Nice to see you too, David. Been a while. You know, a normal friend would just stop by for drinks or something, but I guess I shouldn't have expected that from you, you fucking psycho." I stopped myself from saying anything more. "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that," Sean chuckled. "Come on, David. We never do this soppy bullshit. If I were you, I would have thought I jumped off the deep end as well." Before I go any further, I need to tell you about the last time I actually saw Sean. It wasn't exactly our best interaction. We were sitting in the same diner, and I stormed out on him after calling him crazy and other related synonyms. But I had a reason to do so. He'd been weird ever since high school had begun. He started talking to me less and less, and it peaked during the last few weeks of grade 11, where we never even exchanged a word. Then he spent the entire 12th grade being homeschooled. I mean, I had no idea what the hell was going on with him. Whenever I'd go over to his house, his parents would just smile at me and say he was busy. All the damn time. Busy with what? I always thought that they looked nervous when they said it as well. There was also a rumor floating around, something about the cops finding him in the woods. I'm fuzzy on the details. I mean, it's not like him or his parents would ever talk about it. In the summer before college started, they just moved away entirely. I don't know where to. I thought that was going to be the last time that I'd ever see him. Clearly, I was wrong. Out of the blue one day, he called me over to the diner. I just finished my first semester of college on a high note, so I was feeling pretty good. It was made even better by the fact that my old friend had finally reached out to me. I was excited to know what had been going on with my best friend all these years. I wanted to know that things would be all right, and that everything would revert back to being normal with him, just like the old days. I wanted an explanation. But I didn't like the one that I got. It was like the plot of some bad horror movie. I don't remember what he said verbatim, but there was something about a cult that both him and I had apparently encountered in the woods once. He tried so hard to convince me that it was all true, but I wasn't having it. Eventually, I just stormed out. I mean, I don't recall anything like that ever happening. Even now, it doesn't ring a bell. But I will admit, things are starting to get pretty weird. "Do you believe me now?" he asked. "About what?" I responded, knowing exactly about what. "The cult," he said. "The followers of the masked god." I scoffed. "Jesus Christ, Sean. This shit again?" "I understand why you thought I was crazy before, but come on. You're still denying it now? After everything you've seen? So you wanted me to see that guy in our treehouse? What is he, an actor? Just like the rest of these masked assholes?" Sean sighed. "And you think I'm the delusional one?" I wanted to slam the table when he said that, but I calmed myself down. "Okay," I said. "Sure, it's weird. All of it is. But there's gotta be a better explanation than a goddamn cult." He just gave me a look of disbelief. "Good grief, Dave. It sounds like you're in fucking denial here. Why do you think I'm here? And where do you think I've been?" I paused. It was a good question, one that I somehow hadn't bothered to ask. "I don't know," I said. "What are you doing here?" "I came back to save your ass. Like I said, this isn't something we can run away from." "What do you—" "Let me explain, all right? Do you remember the last time we actually went up into that treehouse?" I began opening my mouth, but quickly realized that the words weren't there. My mind was blank. I began recalling my childhood, all the time that I'd spent with Sean. It was fairly clear up until the summer before high school. I remembered what happened at the beginning. The camping trip where we both got drunk and our parents kicked our asses, watching The Dark Knight in theaters, meeting my ex-girlfriend Lindsay for the first time. But that was all in July. I couldn't remember anything past that. What the hell had happened in August? Sean grinned at my likely confused expression. "It's weird, isn't it?" he said. "The fact that you can't remember what happened that summer." "Is it, though? It's not like I remember everything that's ever happened to me." "That's true," he continued. "Maybe that summer was so insignificant that nothing worth remembering happened at all." He paused, looking me straight in the eye. "But you know that's not true." Another pause. I wasn't really liking where this conversation was headed. "So what happened?" I finally responded. "And let me guess, it has something to do with this masked cult." He sighed, almost sounding relieved. "Glad we're finally getting on the same page. What do you think?" I'm not sure what to think at this point. I could see his eyes wander over to somewhere behind me. "We'll make up your mind later. Looks like they've gotten more widespread since the last time I was here." I turned around, seeing that the waitress was standing absolutely still just a few feet away, holding an empty tray. And of course, she was wearing a mask. The idea of the whole thing being a prank was becoming less and less likely. I sighed. I should have moved out of this fucking town. "Yeah, probably," Sean said, nodding. "Looks like I'm not getting my coffee either." He unzipped his jacket, revealing a pistol on his belt. "Are you serious right now?" I said upon seeing it. Kind of an unexpected sight. "Of course I'm serious," he said. "This nightmare has been going on for too long. It's time to end it." I could feel myself starting to sweat. Calling it an uncomfortable situation would have been selling it short. "Please don't tell me you're planning on shooting that fucking waitress." "Waitress?" he chuckled. "That's not a waitress." "Well, whoever she is, please don't do some dumb shit." "Relax," he said, zipping his jacket back up. "I'm just trying to give you peace of mind. Don't you have a gun as well?" "Of course I don't. Do I need one?" "More than you know." "Oh my God," I said, burying my face into my hands. "There's a lot of heat in here." Sean continued. I turned back around, seeing that at least 5 more of the restaurant patrons now had masks on and were staring over at us. "Fuck, this is freaky." Sean stood up and threw a crumpled $20 bill onto the table. "Let's get out of here." "And go where?" "Take a guess." "What? How the hell am I supposed to know?" Instead of answering the question, he just walked off. We left the building and headed back onto the streets. I don't know if it was just me, but I could feel a tension rising in the air. almost like an invisible pressure on my body. It was weird. So let's say that this cult hypothetically exists. What's it got to do with us? And why don't I remember any of it? I asked. Sean smiled. You should have asked that question at the beginning. I rolled my eyes. Anyways, it's a bit complicated. I figured, and I'm not sure if I remember everything myself. But let me start from where I think the beginning is. According to Sean, this is allegedly what had happened. You see, we'd stopped using the treehouse much during the latter years of junior high. I don't know, I guess we thought it was lame that age. Nevertheless, we decided to go there one day after months of not being there at all. This was in the August of 2008, the point where I stopped remembering anything. That day we went up there, we found a mask lying in the corner. One of those plastic theater masks. Sean said that he remembered its expression being a disturbing one, so much so that he found it hard to look at. He couldn't fathom why somebody would produce such a thing. And guess what you went and did with the mask? He asked. What? You put it on and tried to scare me, like a fucking asshole. I could believe it. I was a bit of a rascal back then, but what he told me next was a bit less believable. As soon as I put it on, I apparently stopped moving. He thought it was part of my act at first, but I never dropped it. I just stood absolutely still, not saying a single word. Even as he tried shaking me out of my sudden trance, I wouldn't budge. Eventually, he decided to get help. But before he went and climbed down the steps, he looked out the window and saw somebody staring up at the treehouse from the ground. A person wearing a mask, standing at the edge of the clearing. Stifling an instinctive scream, he crouched down and began observing. Soon enough, this person was joined by others. At a point, the masked people had formed an effective perimeter around the tree. This is when he started freaking out. He tried everything to get me to stir, but I wouldn't budge. Eventually, he tried taking the mask off, but he couldn't. For some reason, it was stuck to my face like glue. We didn't have cell phones back then, so he couldn't just call somebody. He glanced back out the window but couldn't see anybody there. He tilted his head down and figured out why. They'd all moved to the base of the tree. He backed away and grabbed the knife and baseball bat he'd hidden in the floorboards. His only line of defense. He could hear the people beginning to climb up. He dashed over and swung the bat at the head of the person who made it up first. To his horror, his swings didn't seem to yield any effect. He watched as the person's head violently rocked to the side upon impact, and he could hear something crack. But they didn't stop. They just kept pulling themselves up into the treehouse. In a last-ditch effort, he took out his knife and stabbed them in the shoulder. Instead of blood seeping out from the wound, it was some kind of sand-like substance. That had no effect either. Soon enough, 3 of the masked people had made it up. Sean dropped his weapons and backed himself into a corner. They stood still for a moment before turning their heads towards me, while I was still unmoving. One of them reached out and put a hand on my head, before chanting out some inhuman dialect. This is when he supposedly passed out. This sounds like some fucking fever dream, I said, interrupting him. I'm pretty sure I would have remembered something like, let me finish the story, he responded. Why? Does it get even more ridiculous? Let me guess, a fucking spaceship landed next. He sighed, sounding more frustrated than before. You're in denial, I get it. Looks like I'll have to do something drastic to bring you back to reality. Well, that doesn't sound very promising. He abruptly stopped in the middle of the street. He looked behind us, and I followed his gaze. 2 police officers were standing some distance behind us. They had also stopped in their tracks, staring intently at us. Sean took out his pistol and aimed it at them. Dude, please don't! He fired a shot before I could finish my sentence, striking one of the officers straight in the chest. I put my hands up in horror. You've lost your mind, I said, starting to panic. What the hell did you just do? Look at them, he said, nearly shouting. Where's the blood? Curious, I squinted. He was right. The shot had hit the officer close to point blank, but there was no blood stain. Instead, some kind of yellow-brown substance had started leaking from the wound. It almost looked like sand, but that wasn't even the most disturbing part. The cops didn't react at all. In fact, nobody did. The streets weren't packed by any means, but there were a good dozen people in the vicinity. None of them even glanced over at us. "God damn," Sean said, looking around. "It's gotten worse than I thought."